Currently, we're walking through the Bonadilla walking trail here in Russellville, Arkansas. This place basically is a 186 acre wildlife sanctuary slash water sump. A water sump would be like an area where water's collected at a low-lying area, and then whatever water from storm drains and whatever rainfall gets collected here, and then it gets pumped out into Lake Dardanelle, which is right on the other side of this tree line right here, and it's managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And a lot of people that live in Russellville, they come out here just to walk the trail. It's a very nice, very serene atmosphere, and I wanted to come out here and check it out. Now, normally Russellville, a very, very safe town, and many people come out here to just enjoy the scenery. This should not be a place where anybody, in particular women, should come and have to be worried about who's following them and be just scared. But in 2002, a woman was walking in this very area where I'm currently at right now, and little did she know was that a predator somewhere in these trees, somewhere lurking around, was waiting for an opportunity to attack. On that day was pretty hot, muggy, steamy summer of 2002. Kelly Jo Harris is on this trail where I'm walking at, and she's just jogging. So as she jogs around a corner, she sees a guy. He's just sitting on a bench. He has on a white t-shirt and a ball cap. She thinks nothing of it. She jogs past him. She's doing her thing, and all of a sudden she hears footsteps behind her. Running footsteps, like another jogger. So she turns around and she sees this guy that she just passed on the bench running at her with a tree branch that was the size of a baseball bat, but a little thicker. And he just takes it and clubs her right over the head. She falls down to the ground, and he just starts pummeling on her with his fist, saying, "I'm going to effing kill you. I'm going to effing kill you." And this woman's life flashes right before her very eyes. She doesn't know what the hell is happening. She's probably thinking she's gonna die. This guy's gonna kill her. And she begged him for her life. She says, "I got kids, please stop." And all he kept saying was, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna effing kill you." And then all of a sudden, she gets the strength to get up on her knees and get away from him, and she starts running for her very life. And as she's running, she turns around and to see if he's following her, and he's running the opposite way. She's able to make it to her car and telephones 911. Police quickly picked up this man, Gary Dunn. Now, they would eventually charge him with second-degree battery. Now, I don't personally understand why, because I know Arkansas to be a place that is tough on crime. And if you get caught up with doing something, especially something violent like that, you're going to get many, many years. But for some unknown reason, he only ended up getting about 6 years in prison. And of that 6 years, he ended up serving roughly about maybe 3.5 years. So he gets out on parole somewhere around 2005. We're gonna fast forward a couple years. We're gonna head to 2005. It is fall here in Russellville. We're currently walking on the campus of Arkansas Tech. And one of those students that attended this university was one 19-year-old Nona. She came to this school along with her boyfriend, Kevin Jones. They were high school sweethearts. And I believe in the school year 2005, Kevin decided to change his major. So he ended up going to the University of Arkansas, which is about an hour and a half away from Russellville. So now you have two kids who have dated for at least 5 years. Now they're stepping into the realm of long distance relationships. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I guess it just depends on both parties. So as you can see from the picture, Nona Dirksmeyer is a very beautiful girl. She had participated in many smaller pageants in the area, including, I believe, Miss Arkansas pageant. She was a soprano singer, very, very good singer. Just a very, very pretty girl, very nice personality. And she, I wouldn't say had a lot of friends. She wasn't a super open person when she was younger. And that's because, well, she told her mother a very, very dark secret after her father died. She tells her mother that her father had been molesting her while he was alive. And I don't know what kind of psychological damage that can do to a young woman's psyche. I can only imagine. And I can only imagine that kind of absolute trauma that would be done upon you, how it could warp and change your life for the worse. However, Nona would not let that get her down. So I was kind of surprised to know that about her scumbag piece of crap. Not even going to call him her father. And she would still do these pageants. Now, you have a long distance relationship. Now, they're still close. It's not like they're across the country. You know, he's an hour and a half drive away from Russellville. So going into December of 2005, it's Christmas time here. It's getting a little bit cooler. As a matter of fact, as I'm recording of this video, I think it's 3 days away from the actual murder. So on that day, Russell's in the area and he's with his mother and they're supposed to attend some kind of a family party. Earlier that morning on December 15th of 2005, Nona had texted Kevin, quote, "Good morning, Cuddle Muffin. I love you and hope you have a good day," unquote. Now, Kevin and Nona would talk and text every day. Now, when he was in the area, he had texted her and she always texted back. Okay, this girl wasn't the type that you would text her and she would respond in 3 or 4 hours or whenever she felt like it. No, she would respond typically quickly, right away. So Kevin, maybe an hour passed, maybe 2. It was enough time where he started getting very worried because this is not like her. Now, maybe she could be sleeping, but that's not like Nona to be sleeping at a time like in the middle of the afternoon when he's texting her, calling her, she's not answering the phone. So he's not readily available in the area at that present time. So he gets one of his friends who happens to be a pizza delivery driver. He says, "Hey man, during one of your deliveries, do you think you can stop by Nona's apartment? Just see if she's like there, or she's sleeping or something like that, because she's not answering her phone and it's kind of strange." So the pizza delivery guy friend, he goes to her apartment and knocks on her door. There's no answer. However, her car is outside and the lights in her apartment are on. So he calls Kevin back and he says, "Hey dude, car's here, her lights are on, she's not answering the door." Now Kevin, he gets a really strange, feeling like a pit in his stomach. Now he's getting very, very worried. So he tells his mom, "Hey, let's go to Nona's apartment because she's not answering her phone and I'm very worried now." So Kevin and his mom, they jump in the car and they head straight to Nona's apartment. Kevin comes driving up this street right here with his mom, and they pull into these apartments right here. This is where Nona used to live. So they pull into the parking lot, and that's where they meet his friend. And he tells them what I just told you. She's not answering the door. Her car is there. Her lights are on. Now, I believe the door is locked. So they made the entrance to her apartment by one of these sliding glass doors on this side of, in the back end of this building right here. It would have been one of these sliding doors where they made their way in. Now, normally, Nona was very cautious about her safety, so she would always use something to block the door from being able to just slide open in case anybody decided to try to break in. Now, when they made their way into the apartment, that device wasn't on, so it just opened right up, and that really freaked him out. And as soon as they went past the blinds, Kevin noticed that there was blood on them. And he makes his way to her bedroom, and the stuff of absolute nightmares is right in front of his face. He sees his girlfriend lying nude in a puddle of blood, face down. He immediately runs to her and tries to grab her and starts doing CPR and is cradling her in his arms. And he screams at somebody to call 911. And by the time they came, there was nothing that they can do. She was pronounced dead at the scene. And this is the apartment where she used to live. Apartment 12. Now, by the time the police and paramedics come to these apartments, everything is absolutely chaos. You have a grieving boyfriend, a grieving mother of the boyfriend. Everybody is in absolute shock and bewilderment. Now, you have what appears to be a horrendous murder taking place in a relatively small town of only about 30,000 people or so. This kind of crime does not take place in Russellville very often, if at all. So as the detectives are, conducting their primary investigation, they start talking to Kevin, and they're asking him, so where were you? What were you doing? Blah, 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 yada, yada. And, well, he tells them basically what I told you earlier in this video. So they ask him to come down to the station because, well, he was the first one to see Nona dead, and they need to get his version of events. And unbeknownst to Kevin, because he's in a state of shock, more than likely, he probably contaminated the crime scene. So one of the detectives, Mark Frost, I don't know if he was the lead investigator, but for some unknown reason, something is not sitting right with him, because, you got a hardened investigator, Russellville Police Department. I mean, how hardened can you possibly be? But, crimes do occur in this area, and he might have other law enforcement experience. And I don't know why personally, but Kevin, something's not sitting right with the detective, and maybe he's possibly bothered by the fact that Kevin, ran to his girlfriend and, held her, and maybe, got blood on him and what have you. And he starts talking to him about things, and he's like, hey, do you mind if we do a polygraph test on you? And he says, no, of course not. And now, guys, this guy is absolutely beside himself. He just held his dead girlfriend's body in his hands, trying to save her life, trying to do CPR. So they get a licensed polygraph examiner to do the test. So the test is completed, and the detective tells Kevin, he's like, listen, he goes, I've been doing this for like a lot of years, man. And this is the worst failure of a test I've ever seen in my life. This is absolutely, like, you're a terrible liar. Absolutely horrible. And Kevin, I mean, I'm sure he's getting nervous, scared. And he's saying, like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, they're saying you failed the test. What did you do? Why'd you kill your girlfriend, Kevin? Why'd you kill your girlfriend? And so basically the detective is theorizing that Kevin murdered his girlfriend in a jealous, heated rage of passion and anger. Now, one of the items that they found in Nona's apartment was an empty condom wrapper. Now, you get this empty condom wrapper and you're a detective, right? So you get it, whichever way you do with tweezers, put it in a bag, test it later for evidence. Now, when the detective submits this condom wrapper to the lab for testing, they tell him, hey, listen, there's not much to test here, and we can only do one of two tests. So which one do you want to do? Do you want to test for fingerprints, or do you want to test for DNA? Empty condom wrapper, not a condom, empty condom wrapper, the packaging. Now, you got to think to yourself, okay, fingerprints or DNA? If it was the condom, obviously it's DNA, but the wrapper, so he goes with fingerprints. So they tested for the fingerprints and nothing. So basically, the wrapper is kind of destroyed in terms of being able to get any DNA evidence on it. Now, remember when I was over at the Nature Wildlife Preserve about 4 miles down the road? You remember Gary Dunn? Well, it just so happens to be that he lived in the same apartment as Nona did. He lived across the way from her. Now, when the detectives were talking to all of the neighbors of Nona and getting any stories that they can get out of them, they interview Gary Dunn and they look him up and they see that attack that I previously spoke about in the beginning of this video on his criminal record. Now, at the time, he's on parole and he's living with his girlfriend there. So they theorized that Nona was killed at a certain time, early afternoon, I believe, on that date, December 15th, 2005. So they ask him, right around, the detectives, they believe that she was killed and she was dead hours before the boyfriend and the mother and the friend arrived. So they're trying to get his timeline of things, right? So they're saying, okay, where were you at, 11 o'clock? And he's like, I went to Lowe's. And the detectives asked, well, can you provide a receipt stating that, you were at Lowe's? He said, yeah, sure. So he gets the receipt and he gives it to him. And, okay, a violent guy that lives across from the same apartment of a very pretty girl, right? If I'm a detective, I'm gonna really want to delve into this guy's, situation a little bit further. I'm gonna want to talk to his girlfriend. Now, I'm not exactly sure what took place, but the detectives, especially Mr. Frost, really feels that, Kevin is responsible, and I believe his main suspicion is that condom wrapper. I mean, there was DNA profile on it of two different persons. So he's, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm not a scientist or a detective, but he starts theorizing that, Nona was obviously, she was dating other guys, and Kevin found out, became absolutely enraged, flew off the handle, he drove from Dover or wherever he came from out here, took a lamp, which they suspect to be the main thing that was hit over her head to knock her down on the floor, and start to bludgeon her and stab her to death. So next year, in 2006, at the end of March, they arrest Kevin and charge him with the murder of Nona, right? So he goes all the way to trial with really not much of any evidence other than purely circumstantial. And yeah, his fingerprints were at the scene of the crime, but that's his girlfriend. Of course, his fingerprints are going to be at the scene of the crime. So the lamp that was used to bash Nona in the back of the head, his fingerprint was on that light bulb, which, again, okay, he changed her light. All right. So they go all the way to trial, and these damn detectives, they believe that this guy is absolutely freaking guilty. And jury came back. He was, I believe it was an acquittal. So that's it. So now you just, drug a man's name through the mud, saying that he killed the love of his life. And yeah, you know what? Listen, there were a couple guys that she dated, right? And then the police, they talked to them and all of their stories checked out, all of their alibis checked out. I don't know what the circumstances of the friendship or relationship there was between these guys, maybe one or two guys or something like that, and Nona. But let's just say these guys ain't talking to her because they want to play basketball. You know what I'm saying? But I do not know. So after his case is over, they start looking at Gary Dunn again a little bit harder. And they start looking and delving in a little bit further, and come to find out a couple of different things about Gary that maybe they didn't look hard enough in the beginning, came in front of their very eyes. And a couple of those things came from Gary's girlfriend at the time. So investigators were interviewing her, and I don't even know how, when these things came up, that he wasn't the prime suspect in the very beginning. So she tells them that about 2 weeks before her murder, that she's seen Gary coming out of Nona's apartment. Now, she's seen him coming out with another woman. Now, I don't know if she said if that other woman that she was able to identify as Nona Dirksmeyer. I'm not really sure, but she said that she's seen it and that she questioned him about it, and he basically said, yeah, I was looking for a cat or some kind of nonsense like that. And the other thing, very disturbing thing, that would also come out about his character is that, well, Gary Dunn liked rough sex. Extremely rough sex. So rough, in fact, that he would oftentimes force himself on her even when she wasn't in the mood. And oftentimes he would put her face in the pillow and she would scream like, no, stop, you're hurting me. And he wouldn't care. As a matter of fact, one of those instances was so bad that she had to have an emergency hysterectomy. And I've never in my life heard of that. So now you got a guy who is bare minimum a sexual deviant, a violent predator. Oh, and I also forgot to mention this. When that condom wrapper that was tested for fingerprints was again tested, but this time for DNA, remember what I said earlier? They only had one choice. You either test the DNA or you test the fingerprints. Well, there's a reason why they only had one choice. because when they tested it for DNA, one of the profiles came up as belonging to Gary Dunn. However, we got a problem. It was only a partial profile, not a full-on profile. I don't know of an analogy, a technical term that I could use to explain a partial profile versus a full-on profile, but I believe that you have to have so many markers of a DNA profile put together to determine without a shadow of a doubt, when they do the 1 in 900 million chance of the same DNA, you need all of those parts of the DNA specimen together. So if there's like 25 parts, they probably only had 7. Now, the chances of this partial DNA profile belonging to somebody else was about 1 in 3,500. Now, 1 in 3,500, you have a guy who lives in the same apartment as she does. He's a sex pervert creep. He is a known assaulter of women, a very, very violent guy. You would think to yourself, just anybody with any kind of common sense would say, okay, this guy is turning out to be our suspect that we are looking at, right? However, you still have to convince a jury 1 in 3,500, not 1 in 92 million, 1 in 3,500. However, they still went ahead and they charged Gary Dunn with her murder. Now, for the next few years, as he's sitting in jail, they tried him the first time, and all of this stuff comes out, all of the rough sex stuff with the ex-girlfriend, people testifying as to his, character and what type of person he is. Oh, and also, his mother testified, because before, I think she originally had said that she was with Gary when they went to Lowe's. However, she had questioned Gary about whether he committed this crime or not. Now, if you're not lying and you were with your son at Lowe's, why the hell would you even ask him whether he had anything to do with this or not? So you couple that with the fact of that receipt that I mentioned earlier, the Lowe's receipt, that was not valid. That receipt did not put him at the time. I want to say just off the top of my head that receipt might have been from my bank statement. It wasn't the actual receipt from Lowe's. It was a receipt that was charged, maybe using your credit card, that they would be billed, 24 hours later. Something like that. So you have a lot of inconsistencies in Gary Dunn's alibi of where he was the day of the murder. However, 1 in 3,500. Are you going to convince a jury of 12 men and women? Again, you have to convict without any doubt, like 100%, beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's what they tell you. If you have if the proof is not there, then you're going to say not guilty. So the first trial for that Gary Dunn was put on trial for the Nona's murder, the first result was a hung jury. They put on trial again. We, the jury, cannot come together for an unanimous verdict a second time, a second hung jury. 1 in 3,500. That's the problem. That detective should have probably tested the DNA instead of the fingerprints. Then he probably might have gotten a full-on DNA profile of Gary Dunn. And I'm quite positive he is the creep that committed this crime. The DA, are they going to try him a third time? So they declined to charge him again, and he would be set free. His freedom, however, wouldn't last very long because in 2018, a situation happened where a girl who happens to also be a beauty pageant contestant, very weird, and I believe she also went to the same school as Nona, Arkansas Tech. She's driving down the street and she notices that this guy, it's like somebody's following her. And I guess she got this, like, I guess her creep meter goes off. So this guy is following her and he follows her to like this parking space, and he tries to block her from getting out. And he goes up to her car and he's trying to open the door, like trying to kidnap her. And she starts screaming and she calls 911. He's trying to open the door and then he just gets into his car and splits. And this pervert, not even 15 minutes later, this pervert tries to kidnap another woman. This guy is freaking insane. So finally, police catch him and put him in jail and charge him with the attempted kidnapping of, her name was Riley. I don't remember her last name. The girl that he tried to kidnap as well. So they try him for those crimes, and he's found guilty, and he is sentenced to 15 years in prison. Now, currently, right now, Gary Dunn is at a prison at the Wrightsville Center here, one of the prisons in Arkansas. And he's sitting on ice right now. And so the district attorney for Russellville, Arkansas, they have a few years to decide whether they want to try him again. Again, there's no statute of limitations on murder. And maybe now that people know what kind of deviant creep he is, and that he tried to kidnap 2 women, one of them, you know, being very pretty, just like Nona was, maybe this time, maybe the third time, the DA will say, you know what, let's hope that we get a jury that kind of says this guy, all signs point to him.